Okay, IonQ. Q3 2025 earnings just dropped. And wow, the headlines are pretty loud.
They really are.
Revenue hit $39.9 million. That absolutely crushed the street's forecast, which was what, around $27 million?
$26.98 million, yeah. So a huge beat.
And the stock reacted instantly, jumped 3.75% after hours.
Wow.
So the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear, right?
Mm.
What on earth drove this massive beat, and where does IonQ go from here, especially with that updated guidance? Let's get right into it.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just one good financial quarter. It feels like a statement, you know? Aggressive execution.
How so?
Well, that $39.9 million revenue, it wasn't just a beat against Wall Street. It was 222% year-over-year growth. That's staggering.
222%.
Exactly. And maybe even more telling, it smashed the high end of their own guidance.
Oh, really? By how much?
By 37%. When a company blows past its own ambitious targets like that, well, the market really sits up and takes notice.
Right. That level of overperformance is exactly what you look for in this kind of high-growth tech space. And it wasn't just the top line, was it? The bottom line looked better, too.
Yeah, the operational side seems tighter. Adjusted EPS was a loss of 17 cents.
Okay. Which sounds like a loss, but the forecast was much worse.
Much worse. Forecast was for a loss of 46 cents. So that's what, a 63% upside surprise, even on the loss figure.
So managing the burn rate better than expected while delivering that huge revenue growth.
Exactly. It suggests a controlled, strategic burn. And that confidence feeds right into their full-year outlook.
Which they raised significantly.
They did. They bumped the full-year 2025 revenue guidance way up, now looking at $106 million to $110 million.
Wow. That's up from 80-something to 100 before, right?
That's right. $82 to $100 million was the old range. So if they hit this new range, they'll be the first public pure-play quantum company ever to guide to triple-digit million-dollar revenue for a year.
That feels like a milestone, not just for them, but kind of for the whole sector.
It's a huge psychological and obviously financial threshold.
But, okay, a strategy like that 222% growth needs fuel, serious capital. You need a strong balance sheet for that kind of ambition. What's the firepower look like?
Oh, they are absolutely built on a rock-solid foundation there. As of September 30th, they had $1.5 billion in cash and equivalents.
Okay, that's solid.
But here's the real kicker. In October, just after the quarter ended, they did a $2 billion equity offering.
Another one, okay.
Yeah, and apparently it was heavily oversubscribed.
Yeah.
So their pro forma cash position jumps to, get this, $3.5 billion.
$3.5 billion.
And crucially, zero debt. That positions IonQ as, well, arguably the most well-capitalized quantum player out there globally. It's a hyper-competitive field.
$3.5 billion is a phenomenal war chest, no doubt. But let's, push back a little. We saw that adjusted EBITDA loss, $48.9 million for the quarter. Isn't that high cash position just necessary because they're burning through it so fast? I mean, how sustainable is that R&D burn, even with $3.5 billion?
That's a totally fair question. And yeah, the $48.9 million loss is, it's basically a direct reflection of the strategy, right? Aggressively deploying capital into R&D.
Yeah.
Their R&D spend nearly doubled year over year. The market, for now at least, isn't really penalizing them for that loss because it sees where the money's going. It's directly linked to maintaining that tech leadership.
So spending to stay ahead.
Exactly. They're not just building machines. They're trying to solve the really hard problems, error correction, scaling faster than anyone else. The bet is they capitalize so heavily now that they build an almost insurmountable lead by the time quantum truly hits commercial scale.
Okay, so the argument is spend big now, dominate later. Let's shift from the cash to the actual innovation then, because it feels like this financial beat is tied directly to some big technical achievements they announced. This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, this is the technical why behind all that financial confidence. Two milestones really stand out, proving that R&D investment is actually paying off.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, they launched their AQ64 tempo system ahead of schedule. They actually hit their big 2025 technical milestone 3 months early.
AQ64, we hear these acronyms all the time in quantum. For you listening, the learner out there, what exactly is hashtag AQ64? Why was hitting that early such a big deal?
Right. So AQ stands for algorithm qubits. Think of it as a more holistic measure of a quantum computer's real power. It combines the number of physical qubits with their quality, how error-prone they are, and how well they're connected.
So it's not just about having lots of qubits, but good, usable qubits.
Precisely. It tells you how complex a problem the machine can reliably solve. Hitting AQ64 means the machine crossed a really key threshold in terms of usable computational power.
And the aha moment detail here.
The kicker is that IonQ calculated this AQ64 tempo system unlocks 36 quadrillion times more computational space than the leading commercial superconducting systems currently available.
36. Quadrillion. That's one of those numbers that's just hard to even wrap your head around. Can you give us, like, a comparison? Is that like going from a dial-up modem to fiber optic? Or
It's probably even more dramatic than that, honestly.
Wow.
Think about the history of classical computers. That leap, 36 quadrillion times, it's like the quantum version of scaling up the capacity of one of those early room-sized supercomputers by an exponential factor almost overnight.
Wow.
It marks the beginning of the shift,
Yeah.
from using quantum computers for just small experiments to potentially running meaningful large-scale applications, things that the most powerful classical supercomputers on Earth simply cannot simulate anymore. That's the dawn of real quantum advantage.
Okay, so massive computational scale unlock. But scale isn't everything if the calculations are full of errors.
Right.
What was the second big technical milestone?
Exactly. Reliability is crucial, and that comes down to something called gate fidelity, basically quality control for quantum operations.
Yep.
And IonQ achieved a world record 99.99%. So it's the 4 nines. Everyone talks about 2-qubit gate performance.
99.99%. Okay, 4 nines sounds impressive, obviously better than 3 nines. But why is that specific number, that threshold, considered so game-changing for quantum?
Because it directly attacks the Achilles heel of quantum computing errors.
Yeah.
Every time you perform an operation, a quantum gate, there's a chance of an error creeping in.
Okay.
If your gate fidelity is low, meaning lots of errors, you have to use a huge number of your precious physical qubits just to correct the errors in one single logical qubit, the usable error-corrected qubit.
Ah, so it's like massive overhead.
Exactly, huge overhead. Achieving 99.99% fidelity is seen as the first time any company has hit the specific performance level needed to realistically scale up to full, fault-tolerant quantum systems.
Fault-tolerant meaning error-corrected.
Right. Think of it like breaking the sound barrier for quantum scaling. It means they need fewer physical qubits to build functional, reliable, large-scale commercial machines. It simplifies the whole engineering challenge and, crucially, lowers the physical hardware cost down the line tremendously.
Okay, so that technical lead AQ64 power plus 4 nines fidelity that seems to be underpinning the CEO's confidence, right?
Okay.
Niccolo de Masi saying, quantum is now, calling IonQ the 800-pound gorilla of quantum. That sounds like more than just building good computers. It sounds like a bigger strategic play.
That's absolutely the shift. They're explicitly moving from being just a quantum computing hardware maker to becoming a full-stack quantum platform provider.
Full stack, meaning?
Meaning they recognize that real quantum advantage needs more than just a fast processor. It needs the whole ecosystem. Secure networking, specialized sensing capabilities, quantum-safe security, all built around the core computing power. Their strategy now rests on 4 integrated pillars: quantum computing, quantum networking, quantum sensing, and quantum security.
And those acquisitions, they made Oxford Ionics and Vector Atomic, they seem tailor-made for building out those chillers, don't they?
Perfectly timed and targeted. Take Oxford Ionics. That brought in their electronic qubit control architecture, or EQC.
Okay, EQC, what's the significance there?
Well, the really fascinating part is the economic implication. EQC allows IonQ to potentially leverage existing mature semiconductor fabrication processes. Think the same kind of proven chip factories, maybe even older nodes, that make classical computer chips.
Wait, so instead of building entirely new, exotic, quantum-specific factories...
Exactly. They can tap into the existing, massive, and relatively lower-cost semiconductor manufacturing infrastructure.
So you take that world record quantum tech and put it on a familiar, high-volume, cheaper manufacturing path, like building regular chips. That starts to sound like that unit economics moat we talked about.
Precisely. It could massively reduce costs, speed up scaling, and make their supply chain much more resilient. That helps solidify the computing and networking pillars.
Okay, and the other acquisition, Vector Atomic.
Vector Atomic strengthens the sensing and security pillars. They brought in critical capabilities in things like precision inertial sensors, ultra-stable atomic clocks, and expertise in PNT positioning, navigation, and timing.
PNT sounds very technical. Why is that important for their platform and maybe their big potential customers?
PNT is vital for big strategic government clients. defense, critical infrastructure. Think next-generation GPS that's resistant to jamming or spoofing. Ultra-secure communication timing, making sure the power grid or financial networks are perfectly synchronized and protected.
Ah, so the kind of capabilities needed for those massive multi-year government and defense contracts, the so-called Golden Dome projects.
Exactly. By folding in vector atomic sensing and timing tech with their own quantum security and computing, they can now realistically bid on these huge integrated system-level contracts.
And this whole full stack strategy, it's not just on paper anymore, right? They're actually deploying this stuff.
Yeah, it's moving into the real world.
Oh.
For instance, on the security front, they just launched the first dedicated citywide quantum network in Geneva, Switzerland, no less.
Geneva. With who?
In collaboration with some pretty heavy hitters. CERN, Rolex, the Swiss government. That's a serious demonstration project.
Definitely. And on the application side?
They landed a significant new contract with Oak Ridge National Laboratory that's focused on advanced energy applications, like optimizing the power grid.
Okay.
So this integrated approach, they believe, positions them for these bigger multi-year deals.
Yeah.
They're talking about chasing three-digit million-dollar opportunities. And get this, they reported having over $1 billion worth of proposals currently in progress that leverage this new full-stack platform approach.
$1 billion in proposals. Okay, clearly they're not just thinking quarter to quarter. They're planning for the next decade. Let's talk about that long-term roadmap because it looks, well, extremely aggressive.
Aggressive might be an understatement. It borders on audacious, really. But it speaks volumes about their confidence in the scalability of their trapped ion technology.
So what are the milestones?
They're planning a 256-qubit machine by 2026, then targeting 1,600 logical qubits by 2028, and then a staggering 80,000 logical qubits by 2030.
80,000 logical qubits in just 5 years from now. That timeline seems almost impossible, especially when you compare it to, say, the roadmaps from superconducting competitors. Is that just swagger, or is there a technical reason they think they can actually hit that?
Well, that 80,000 logical qubit goal puts them, by their own comparison, about 5 years ahead of what a leading competitor is targeting for 2033 for similar capability.
Years ahead.
Yeah. The reasons they give are, one, the inherent advantages they see in the ion trap architecture itself, and two, that huge fidelity boost we talked about, the 4 nines, which dramatically reduces the physical qubit overhead needed for each logical qubit.
Okay.
But to really grasp why this level of ambition might even be justifiable, you have to compare it to the classical world.
All right, hit us with a comparison. What kind of classical power are we talking about?
Okay, take their 2026 machine, target the 256-qubit system, to match the raw computational horsepower of that single machine using today's best classical tech. You'd need the equivalent of 10 to the power of 20 NVIDIA H100 GPUs.
Wait, did you say 10 to the 20? That's a 1 with 20 zeros. That's just an astronomical number of GPUs.
It's essentially incomprehensible, yeah. And think about the power consumption.
Oh, God, I didn't even think about that. What would it take to power 1,020 H100s?
If you somehow tried to build that classical equivalent, the energy required would consume about 1 billion times the total power generation capacity of the entire planet Earth.
1 billion. Earth's worth of power.
Yeah. We're talking physically impossible amounts of energy. This is kind of the ultimate illustration that quantum advantage at scale isn't just a theoretical speed up. It becomes a fundamental physical and economic reality.
Right.
You simply cannot do it classically.
The power savings alone are just mind-boggling. That feels like a massive competitive advantage in itself.
Which brings us back to that ultimate moat, the unit economics. Being powerful is great, but being affordably powerful is maybe even better.
Exactly. This is where that EQC acquisition and using mature semiconductor fabs really comes into play. And it's not just IonQ saying this now. They had global supply chain experts, A.T. Kearney, validate their bill of materials, the BOMOM, the cost of the parts for a future 2 million qubit machine projected for 2030.
Okay, getting external validation from someone like A.T. Kearney is pretty significant. That adds credibility.
It does. It moves it from just an internal spreadsheet estimate to an independently verified economic model.
And what did A.T. Kearney find? What's the projected cost for that massive machine?
They projected the BWOM for that 2 million qubit system would be sub $30 million.
Under $30 million for a 2 million qubit quantum computer. Right. And based on that, they claim this gives IonQ superior unit economics by, quote, an order of magnitude, which they translate to roughly 30 times less expensive than competitor approaches for equivalent computing power down the line.
30 times cheaper. So they're aiming for the technical performance lead and a massive cost advantage simultaneously.
That seems to be the core strategy, technical dominance coupled with economic accessibility.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. IonQ's huge Q3 financial win looks like it was directly fueled by hitting those two key technical milestones, the AQ64 power jump and that crucial 99.99% fidelity record, all backed by now $3.5 billion in cash and zero debt. And they're clearly pivoting from just building computers to offering this full-stack platform, computing, networking, sensing, security, going after much bigger integrated deals.
Yeah, this deep dive really suggests IonQ is not only achieving the kind of power needed for true quantum advantage, but maybe more disruptively, they're building a serious economic moat around it. So the provocative thought maybe for you to chew on is this. If they really can pull off integrating that world record quantum performance with existing scalable, lower-cost semiconductor manufacturing, like that sub-$30 million BOM validated by A.T. Kearney, suggests, does that completely change the race?
How so?
Well, maybe the critical factor isn't just achieving quantum power anymore, but achieving quantum affordability and deployability. If the cost to build and the energy to run these incredibly powerful machines drop so dramatically, what does that do to the actual adoption timeline? How quickly could industries like defense or energy or drug discovery really start leveraging true quantum advantage if it suddenly becomes, well, relatively cheap? The speed of this revolution might hinge entirely on affordability, not just raw power.